All right, you just heard some Sammy T with his first band, Armageddon Rocks. Started the whole train moving. I just happen to have the man himself on the phone right now. What's going on, brother?
Pete Fry, it is good to hear your voice, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's been a while. I
I
think the
know.
last time was probably in your neck of the woods. Yeah?
No, I think it was your neck of the woods. I think Philadelphia, maybe in 2017. I
That,
think somewhere around there, maybe 2018.
that's right, because you've been to the tap room.
That's right,
I
yeah.
went all the way back to when I was still just barely corporate, and I had a thing in Toronto, and I met you and your dad, which was super cool. So,
Yeah, that was awesome. I remember I was really in awe because you were, one of the guitar players that inspired me a lot to do what I'm doing now, to be honest, because you were the first one who really made me realize that you could be, a working class guitar player and, work a full-time job and have a family, but still, write kick-ass music and be a rock star at the same time. So thank you for that.
oh hell yeah, I'm honored every time I hear something like that, and I remember reading your list of top 20 guitarists, and I think I was like number 37. No, I think I was like number 17 or 14 or something like that, and I was like, wow, that's amazing, But yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of have to do that these days, unless you're like Steven Tyler or John Bon Jovi. You really need to make sure that you have enough income and things like that to kind of take care of yourself and your family. And it's not a hobby playing music, but it is, it's not your full-time gig a lot. And I mean, it's certainly not mine. So, I think it's great that you definitely, you approached it with the right attitude. You're very motivated, and you're persistent. You keep it going, and the stuff just gets better and better. So, speaking of that, you've got a new single out called Drive All Night, featuring Sydney Snow of Love Razor. So, how did that come about?
So I really didn't have the intention of even writing a new song. I was just kind of doing what I normally do. I was just in my room with my guitar riffing and, just enjoying, coming up with new riffs and ideas and stuff like that. And I had this idea, which was just the intro riff at the time. And I slowly started to just build on it. And it didn't take long. And the demo didn't really change much from the final version. So once I put it all together with the guitar parts and I had some MIDI drums going and stuff, I realized that I had a pretty good song and I didn't want to just throw it on a USB stick or put it to the side and on the back burner and never touch it again. So, um, it had like a real melodic rock kind of uplifting, up tempo kind of song style to it, and I wanted to build on it. I didn't want it to go to waste. So I started to look around for singers, and in my head, all I could hear was Sydney Snow's voice. And I wanted it to have that sort of melodic rock, kind of maybe a little bit of the glam style, the Poison style. It kind of, to me, was standing out as like a Van Halen kind of Poison thing. And I looked all over the internet to try to find like a Sydney Snow type, and I couldn't find anyone. So it took me about 2 weeks probably to gain the courage to ask him, because you never know what someone's going to say, right? I mean, he's already really busy working full time. He's in two bands, and I didn't want him to feel like he had to do it if he didn't want to. But I went ahead with it. I shot him a message and sent him the demo I had, and he was really into it. And he wrote some lyrics pretty quick, and he wrote, the melodies, and he's really a team player. I mean, the amount of work the guy ended up doing was way more than what I was expecting him to do. I mean, he helped me with photos. He wrote all the words. He wrote those melodies. He helped me promote it. He was giving me tips. He was just so awesome to work with. And I know that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even done the song. I would have just put it on the back burner, and would have never happened. So this song is definitely just as much his as it is mine.
That's great to hear, and I think there's quite a few musicians out there that really are team players that do want to see other musicians succeed and really be a part of it, and a lot of us do it, for the love of doing it. I mean, it's always disappointing when you get those few bad apples in the bunch that are just all about either their exposure or their money, or making sure that no one else gets more publicity than them, and it's heartening to hear that, not everyone is like that, and in fact
Yeah,
very few are like that.
yeah, for sure. I think when things get serious in music, that's when things tend to go downhill. When there's more on the line and there's more money involved in everything, and then everyone's not doing it for the sake, um, for the love of the music anymore. It becomes something different. But in a case like this, it's cool because there's that camaraderie, and it's all about just dedicating the time and the effort to the song and serving the song. And I think that's when you get the best, most genuine, honest results, when you're doing it just for the love of music.
For sure, for sure, and you really get to, and you hear that even now. I mean, there's some bands that were around kind of back in the day, and they come back, because there's, somebody's interested in hearing what they have to do, and some of them you could tell they're just kind of phoning it in to try and sound like they did back in the day. But it's really refreshing to hear a band come back and, they have, it sounds like they have just as much passion as they did back in the day, and it's just so great to see that people can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So the song we played coming into this was from your first project called Armageddon Rocks, and that was around 2017. And I don't know if many people know this, but you're not exactly old like you were around back in the day. What made you choose this style of music? Because you do it really well, and you clearly have a feel for it, but you're not, 8 million years old like I am or something like that. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up on rock music. There was always rock music in the house. My earliest memories of, being a kid were seeing Kiss bootleg tapes on the TV. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to get into Van Halen. And then, Kiss and Van Halen were probably like my top two bands up until I was about maybe 12 or 13 years old. And that's when I started to really get into the 80s rock. From there, I mean, every day through high school was just constantly listening to bands, finding new bands, underground melodic rock bands, or, glam type bands or whatever. And I feel like what happened was I just took all this music in, and I listened to so much music and so many riffs and so many guitar solos over and over again that I developed like sort of a riff brain, like a writer's brain from doing that. I wasn't playing guitar as much or writing, but I took so much in that eventually it all just kind of came out. Like it was like when I started writing, it was like I had it already. It was there. Like I wasn't even much of a guitar player at all when I started writing, but I was just trying to play and write the sounds I could hear in my head, and I still do that today. So I really think if you dive into whatever genre you're interested in, if you really take it all in, then the results you get when you start writing will be very similar.
Yeah, I agree, it's always it's I'm glad I'm not the only one that tries to play those sounds in my head. Sometimes I get really close, and other times I'm like, yeah, that's just not going to happen. But it's I love your approach to it, and and it's interesting because I've been hearing you play for quite some time, and I know one of your big influences is George Lynch, which is great. I mean, that's one of mine as well. But you end up, because you do listen to so much music, you end up not sounding like George Lynch. I mean, obviously there's that influence there, but I love that in that, because you know how you've probably met some other people that like they're really hyper focused on one individual as their influence. They end up sounding like almost exactly like them, and it's kind of like, what's the point of that? They already exist, And I'm glad that didn't happen to you. You've got some really cool style to your playing. You've got some speed. You've got good feel. You clearly love doing it. You're not just doing it for the hell of it or anything like that. It's clearly a passion. I'm glad that comes through.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I try to not be a one-trick pony. I think if you just do one thing, You might become like an Yngwie Malmsteen kind of player. He's kind of notorious for just being able to play fast, and I think he uses the same scale basically all the time. Whereas I try to really think outside the box, and I'm not really I can't do the speed thing really well. I don't really care for that anyway, though. I don't really like the sound of it. It sounds like a million bees like buzzing around your head or something. Yeah, I mean, like even the solo for Drive All Night, I mean, is my best guitar solo. I've never put anything like that together before. It was very melodic. It came very naturally. It flowed, and it kind of has its, it starts out kind of down here, and then it kind of goes up, and then finishes in the right spot. I was really thinking like Greg Fraser from Brighton Rock when I wrote that,
Sure.
because he's an extremely melodic. Like everything he plays, even the faster stuff, if you slow it down, it's super melodic, right? So he's a great example of a player that serves the song, and that's kind of what I want to do with my playing, and especially my solos, is I try not to step on the song. I want it to be really natural sounding. It should fit the song and have flow, because I would say the majority of people don't really want to hear how fast you can play anyway, unless you're trying to impress like other guitar players and other musicians. Then you know the general, the average listener probably doesn't care. So I try to make sure everything fits the song.
I think that's the only way to fly. And like you said, like that, the speed is impressive in and of itself, but it's like you said, you're going to impress other guitar players that kind of understand what you're doing. They're going to say, "Wow, it's pretty fast," but your average listener isn't listening for that. And I talk to my wife all the time, and she'll listen to stuff, and I'm like, "Man, that's really an impressive solo that guy's doing," and she's like, I don't know, it just sounds fast." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you know. So I would say there's a little bit more than a grain of truth to that one. That's definitely for sure. So how did you put this together, like technically? I mean, I know you played all the guitars and Sydney did the vocals. Like who played bass, drums? Like, did you do it all yourself? Did you put it all together yourself, or do you have people that you're working with?
Yeah, so I'm extremely lucky. I had a really good team. So I had Mike Davis on bass, who you've probably seen him in the Melodic Mafia before and on Glam Rock
Absolutely.
City. He's a great player. I had Brian McNeven on keyboards, who doesn't live too far from me. I found him also through Facebook. He was looking for some work, and he's phenomenal, great to work with. And then Torsten in Germany, I believe. I found him on air gigs, and he's just a extremely talented player. I hired him, and within 2 days, he had the drums down for me the way I wanted them, and we just had great performances from everyone. So when you have good players and good performances, it makes it that much easier in production. So I had Chris Tondro from Green Room Recording in Hamilton, taking care of the sound and the mix and everything, making sure everything was tight. And we also had Justin Dow from SLR Studios, taking care of the vocals when Sydney Snow was in the studio. So just a quick shout out to everyone on my team. Thank you so much. I'm so lucky to be able to play with good players like you guys.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, have you ever considered doing any of this live, or are you pretty much sticking to studio projects?
I would like to. It's certainly on my mind. I think it really comes down to finding the right players to do that with me. Um, Obviously, it's pretty easy with the power of the internet to do a song, because you can just hire everybody, and everybody has their own like little recording setup, and you can do that sort of thing. But when it comes to live, I don't, it'd be impossible for me to get this lineup in the same room to
Sure.
rehearse and then go play a show. So yeah, I mean, it comes down to having the right players. And then obviously the time, as you know. I mean, I know you do Jaded Past and Far Cry. It's pretty difficult to find the time to rehearse and write, and then put on a live show, and haul the gear and everything. It's a lot of work and a big commitment. So I would only want to do it if I knew I could put 100% of the effort into it and deliver a really kick-ass show. But yeah, I wouldn't rule it out.
That's fair. That's fair, and all excellent points. And yes, it is very difficult to put stuff together sometimes. Um, so tell me a little bit about, or tell the listeners out there, where can they get this single? Where can they get your other stuff? Where can they find out more about you? Like, what you got going on out there?
Yeah, so the new single is on every single major streaming platform you can think of. iTunes, you can buy it. You can listen to it on Apple Music, Spotify. Those are usually the most popular ones. If you want to go on YouTube, I have it uploaded there as well. If you want my older stuff like Armageddon Rocks, I'm still trying to sell those CDs. I've got like a whole crate of them in my basement. So you can go to my Big Cartel page or just message me on Facebook. I can send you a link. And if you want the CD signed, I can do that for you. I'll throw in some guitar picks. If you don't want guitar picks and you don't want my autograph, that's fine too. Whatever you want. I'm always trying to make sure everyone's happy. So yeah, hit me up there.
No, that's awesome, and that's true. I would say probably 99% of the people want it signed. They want the extra stuff, but there's always that 1%. No, I want it pristine. I just want it shrink wrapped.
Yeah,
I don't want anyone to touch it. In fact, don't even touch it yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it is what it is. But no, that's great that you offer that because most people really do like that personalized feel. So we're going to play the new track right now. We've talked about it quite a bit. I think everyone's appetite is sufficiently whetted, and we can get right into it. But this is Sammy T with Drive All Night. Sammy, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me this morning on the Friday Night with Fry show, although it'll probably be nighttime when this airs. It's always great to talk to you, and hopefully we can have a beer together sometime.
Absolutely, Pete. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This is so cool.